from the cloudy Copenhagen. Welcome to the webinar, Policy Development, Integrating District Energy Systems into Urban Planning, hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. My name is Aris. I'm working as a program officer at the Copenhagen Center, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. A couple of things before we move to the main content of our webinar. This webinar is going to be about 60 minutes long, including time for Q&A at the end. In case you cannot stay until the end or want to get back to our presentations, all the materials and the recording of the whole webinar will be available online in a few days on the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System. And we have many other webinar information there. Have a look. I'll give more information in a few minutes. Before we start discussing about today's topic, I would like to inform our attendees that we comply with the General Data Protection Act, also known as GDPR. This means that your personal data, such as name, email, workplace, etc., is safely processed and stored, and all of your rights pursuant to the GDPR are respected. You have full access to the data being processed about you, and at any time, you can request that inaccurate data be deleted or rectified. For access or further information, please contact with the people that are presented here. A few things about the Copenhagen Center. The Center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as energy efficiency hub for the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. The Center has an established network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders to help accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency activities. On a regular basis, the Copenhagen Center is conducting webinars. All materials, including recordings and presentations from previous webinars, can be found on Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System under the e-learning section. The material of today's webinar will be uploaded shortly, but until then, you can check one of the recommended webinars that are related. Now, I would like to briefly introduce the speakers of today's webinar. Clara is working as postdoctoral researcher at the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, specialized in the climate-conscious transformation of the building sector. And Ms. Kamisah is currently leading the Key Result Area Steering Committee for the Resilient Environment. She oversees programs and activities that enhance natural ecology and build environment, improve green mobility and infrastructure, and embrace low-carbon society in Iskandar, Malaysia. Finally, I would like to inform that you can send us your questions during the presentations using the dedicated icon. And we will do our best to answer as many as we can at the end. Please do not forget to mention the name of the panelist that the question is for. And now, without further delay, I would like to give the floor to the next presenter, Clara. Clara, you have the floor.
Thank you, Aris, for this introduction, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. As it was briefly introduced by my colleague Aris, my name is Clara Camarasa, and I will be guiding you through the content of this first presentation of this webinar. In this presentation, we will be sharing a brief introduction on the District Energy in Cities initiative, as well as some of the programs such as the e-training, along with some key ideas and principles in terms of the policy development to integrate district energy systems into the urban planning. Once this is done, I will hand over to Mrs. Kamisah Mohd Ghazali, who will share her experience from the case of Iskandar, Malaysia, including some of the lessons learned and key recommendations. Now, as I typically do, before we delve into the content, I would like to share some of the context of the program this webinar is forged in. The webinar today has been developed within the Global District Energy in Cities initiative. This is a public-private partnership co-hosted by the United Nations Environment Programme and UNEP-DTU partnership, particularly in the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency that my colleague Aris just explained, with the mission of helping cities tackle the energy transition through the use of district energy systems. The initiative supports local and national governments in the identification of pilot projects and the development of action plans and strategies to accelerate the deployment of this solution at scale. It currently has over 60 partners, including private sector, research institutions, development banks, and public entities, and is actively working in over 30 cities across 14 countries all over the world. Now, what do we exactly do? We focus on four main aspects. First, we increase the knowledge and awareness of the multiple benefits of district energy through a number of capacity building activities. We also provide technical assistance, identifying potential pilot projects, undertaking rapid assessment and feasibility studies, and selecting the most suitable business models, supporting in the tender process, and developing long-term local district energy strategies. We also support in the scaling up efforts, mainly at two levels. At local level, through the establishment of a local multi-stakeholder coordination unit, and at a national level by assisting in the development of national frameworks that support the project development. Last but not least, we help to unlock investments by supporting the identification of financial mechanisms and by aiding the project financial stability, mostly focusing on pioneer projects in each of the specific markets we're working in. I would also like to stress that this webinar is part of the training modules offered by the District Energy in Cities Initiative within the GEF6, which will soon be available in our website, a website that I will share at the end of this presentation. The content of this e-training covers 6 main aspects of district energy development, from fundamentals to business models, finance options, and procurement for sound sustainable projects. The content of today's webinar complements the information that you will find in Module 5 of this training, policy development and integrating district energy systems into urban planning. Now, as described in the UNEP's flagship publication, District Energy in Cities, there are 10 main steps to be undertaken in district energy planning. The first one is to assess the existing energy and climate policy objectives, as well as strategies and targets which are identified as catalysts in this. The second one would be to strengthen or develop the institutional multi-stakeholder coordination framework. The third one would be to integrate district energy into the national and/or local energy strategy and planning. The fourth one would be to map local energy demand and evaluate the local energy resources. The fifth one, and focus of this webinar, would be to determine the relevant policy design considerations, as well as to carry out project pre-feasibility and viability, as well as to develop business plans and analyze procurement options to finally facilitate, finance, and replicate this. Now, let's briefly define urban planning, because it's going to be mentioned several times during this webinar. Urban planning, also known as regional planning, town planning, or city planning, is a technical and political process that is focused on the development and design of land use and the built environment, including air, water, and the infrastructure passing through in and out urban areas, such as transportation, communication, and distribution networks, as well as their accessibility. Over time, urban planning has adopted a focus on the social and environmental aspects, considering urban planning as a tool to improve the health and well-being of the people while maintaining sustainability standards. In order to effectively integrate district energy systems into the local energy and low carbon heating and cooling strategies, it is important to understand the main steps in developing local energy and low carbon heating and cooling strategies. These can be divided into 4 main stages, as can be described in the figure of this slide. Initially, an analysis of the economic, policy, and environmental framework conditions on a national and local level is performed. In this step, also rapid assessment and citywide deep assessment of the district energy shall be conducted in order to make a preliminary assessment on the viability of the solution. Key stakeholders in this are local authorities, as well as national and energy consultants. The second step is the feasibility and master planning. This entails the master plan development with the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies included. Key stakeholders in this phase would be local authorities, energy consultants, as well as urban planners, which need to work together. The third step is the formal planning, oftentimes called zoning. In this step, the mapping for detail is developed. Once it is important to ensure the city's approvals and permits along the finance for the construction takes place. And it is important to note that the mapping for detail in this step can also be used to inform the master plan. In the next phase, the design and construction of the district energy are conducted and therefore finalized, and the proper permit should be in place. And finally comes the operation and maintenance of the network, along with the management and monitoring. Now, worldwide, local governments are using a wide range of policies and activities to promote district energy, demonstrating the significant and diverse roles that cities can play in deploying such systems. Local governments are uniquely positioned to advance district energy systems in large various capacities, such as first as planners and regulators, as we saw in the different phases of the prior slide, as facilitators of finance, as a role of models and advocates, as well as large consumers of energy and providers of infrastructures and services. In fact, local governments can effectively catalyze district energy deployment first and foremost in their role as planners and regulators. By adapting the local regulatory framework, governments can encourage the development of district energy through the vision and target setting, integrated energy planning and mapping, as well as policies that encourage the connection or the waste to energy mandates. Zooming a little bit into the role as planners and regulators, local authorities have three main areas of policy intervention. First, energy policy objectives, strategy, and targets, as authorities can prepare energy strategy linking the benefits of district energy and broad policy targets, such as the ones related to CO2 or other greenhouse gas emissions, energy intensity or fossil fuel consumption, but also energy efficiency and renewable energy. Next comes the role within the holistic energy mapping. Authorities can perform energy mapping of a city local heat and cooling demand in order to understand the energy use, the infrastructure and emissions, as well as resources available. As well as holistic energy planning integrates district energy into land use and infrastructure planning. It also provides guidelines for urban development plan to contain the energy vision and requires energy assessment for new developments. And last but not least, in the policy development, it can be part of the zoning bylaw that allows and encourages or requires district energy development to be formed. An example are the connection policies that encourage the consumers to be connected to the system where it is economically and technically feasible, of course. It can be a measure that minimizes demand and load risk. So this is surely a very interesting or important policy instrument that can be developed by the local authorities. And on this note, I finalize my introductory presentation. I thank you all for your attention, and I leave the floor to Mrs. Kamisah and Mohd Ghazali, who will illustrate some of the aspects through the case of Iskandar in Malaysia. For more information on the Global District Energy in Cities Initiative or the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency, the C2E2, please visit our website that I've shared here in the presentation. And over to you, Kamisah. The floor is yours. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone, and good afternoon and good morning to some of you. That is like 13 hours apart from where we are in Johor, Malaysia. So for today, we are going to share some of the experiences that we have in developing district energy, and also especially on the part of integrating the policy part of it, So we have actually obtained technical assistance from UN Environment and other companies under the Sea for All programs. And we'll share today some of the results, and we share today some of the gaps that we have in terms of, developing a district energy system in Iskandar, Malaysia. So basically, this webinar presents the fundamentals of policy development in district energy. And of course, that include the importance of integrating district energy in urban planning process, the key steps of policy development to integrate district energy system in urban planning, the best case practices, strength and limitation that we have, and of course, lesson learned and recommendation. So for those of you who are new, when it comes to Iskandar, Malaysia, just a short introduction. Iskandar, Malaysia is located in the southern development corridor in Johor. Johor also located at the southern part of Malaysia next to Singapore. We are actually, total area for Iskandar, Malaysia is about 2,217 square kilometer, which is actually about 12% of Johor state, 3 times the size of Singapore. And we covers 5 local authorities. So Iskandar Regional Development Authority is a federal statutory body that is tasked to actually drive the development of Iskandar, Malaysia. So our main function is mainly to plan, promote, and facilitate development in Iskandar, Malaysia. And of course, we also normally will take up a role of implementation agencies, especially when it comes to new innovative projects, such as even infrastructure project, green infrastructure project, and sustainable infrastructure projects. So we are actually guided by our low carbon society blueprints. And I think, in 2009, December 2009, our 6th Prime Minister have committed to voluntary reduction of up to 40% in terms of emission intensity of GDP by year 2020 compared to 2025 levels. And I think at COP19 in Doha, we launched our low carbon society blueprint. And at COP21 in Paris, the commitment is further renewed to a reduction of up to 45% in terms of emission intensity. And the blueprint clearly stated that some of the action items include, green economy system and renewable energy, which actually currently is also part and parcel of what we are doing in terms of moving, reducing emission intensity. So district energy worldwide and in Malaysia, practically, I think district energy is currently not standard cooling technology for dense urban area in Malaysia. And most of the projects are actually greenfield, is actually, privately driven and not by cities. So there are actually a limitation in terms of potential. So what we are trying to do, since we have certain targets that we want to achieve, we are pushing, and our wish is to escalate the development of district energy system in Iskandar, Malaysia. Okay, when we talk about case for action, one is, yes, it is Malaysia voluntary commitment to the Paris Agreement to reduce up to 45% emission. But we also know that, demand for electricity, especially in Peninsular Malaysia, is expected to increase, by 50% from 2018 to 2035. And Iskandar, Malaysia, in our blueprints, have actually targeted to reduce our energy consumption through energy efficiency management, but also we target 12% of our energy requirement will come from renewable energy. We have not reached there, but there is, of course, huge potential to ensure that, energy requirement come from renewable energy. So we're targeting 12%. I think right now we have about 3 to 4%, which actually have a huge case or opportunity, for us to continue implementing even district cooling. So of course, again, cooling of building is also something is actually consuming 25% of the total power in Malaysia. And we also again binds on the commitment on Montreal protocols to actually phase out HCFC, in the future, in order to actually reduce, deliver our commitment. And of course, I think for those of you attending this particular webinar, benefit of district cooling is tremendous. It gives you economy of scales. It's actually operate less electricity consumption, and this translate to the reduction of GHG, high system reliability, minimal environmental impact, and of course better utilization of building space. But I think when it comes to district cooling implementation, everyone normally will talk about the cost, how to fund it, how to make it more feasible. That's the reason when UN Environment, when we did the rapid assessment, we have identified potential in Iskandar, Malaysia. But again, to push forward, whether the current policy actually support the implementation. So when we talk about energy vision for Iskandar, Malaysia, the vision at national level is actually to provide its residents and industries with energy choices that are affordable, reliable, diverse, safe, and environmentally acceptable. Therefore, it looks into three main elements: the economy, social, and environment. And I think when it comes to the trust, excuse me, we need to strengthen the framework. We need to provide the what you call provide for conducive environment for technology development. We have to look at the intensifying human capability, intensifying the renewable energy, energy efficiency, and green technology in terms of research and innovation, and of course promotion and public awareness. In Iskandar, Malaysia itself, we also have established district cooling system in Iskandar, Malaysia, and of course in Malaysia we have a few cases or a few development that DCS that have already been established. For example, in KLIA, the KLIA International Airport, and also KLCC. And for Iskandar, Malaysia, we have also identified, the existing and also the potential one. For instance, currently the biggest DCS in Iskandar, Malaysia will be the DCS Hotel Iskandar. That's where the administrative buildings are. And we also have the DCS Puteri Harbour. Is private driven for the dense development under UEM. And then, of course, Galleria Kota Raya and also Hotel Selesa. But in Hotel Selesa, the hotel have closed down for many years, so the DCS is actually inactive. And under the study rapid assessment that we've done a couple of years ago, together with UN Environment and other technical partners, we have also identified the potential to actually provide or implement DCS in Medini Township, Kulai Sedana Data Exchange, and also Iskandar Halal Park. But of course, there are a lot of barriers and limitation to implement it. But of course, the potential is always there. Okay. The importance of integrating district energy system in urban planning, I think probably is to actually further accelerate district energy. And we already know district energy benefit, but the need to integrate district energy in urban planning process is practically to push forward the agenda of renewable energy. And I think it's important at national level, to show commitment to the development of the facilities and provides options to investors. And of course, for example, we'll see that other cities like Singapore, they have a proper district energy act, and I think similarly in Malaysia, there is a need, for us to have such policy that will coordinate the overall, that will enable the overall development of district energy in Malaysia. Currently, it's pretty much private driven, but again, I think we have to look into it. At regional level, I think district cooling should be listed as a separate infrastructure, probably in development plan, similar to the approach of power, water, and sanitation. But at the same time, I think city government can actually play a more active role in developing district cooling as potential. But again, it's all about feasibility, getting everyone else to participate, especially when we build such big facilities. You need to ensure the take up would be a certain percentage in order to be sustainable. And for state and city level, again, there will be a requirement in the urban design guidelines, for instance, to sort of bring everyone together to comply to certain requirement by the local authority. I think we should promote, even right now, it's pretty much on greenfield. I guess for new development in Iskandar, Malaysia, for new township, this is something that we can adopt, but we should not limit it, to only new development, but we should also explore, the opportunity for retrofitting and all that. Okay, so in terms of policy development, of course, I think what we have done through our stakeholder engagement is actually to assess the current regulatory framework. We had many discussions with the local authorities, with the people at the ministry, the local experts, with regards to how to actually move the agenda forward. So it is important also, I think, even in our assessment, we cannot run away when we look at feasibility, how can the framework helps in terms of funding mechanism to some extent, what would be the approach or the appetite at national level to actually push the agenda forward. And of course, we assess in terms of policy and regulatory barriers, looking at what would be best solution to overcome all this, and then drawing the framework based on international best practices. So in the reports also, in the studies also, we look at what would be policy and regulatory framework that being recommended to actually enable this agenda in the future. So we make recommendation on new policies, regulation standards, and funding mechanism. As part of the pre-feasibility study that have been done, there are, of course, there are potential areas that have been identified. So we thank UN Environment and also Carbon Trust, for helping us out to actually do the mapping exercise and, work out, do the numbers crunching, so that we are able to actually sell it to our current investors. And the mapping exercise that we have done for Medini have shown that there's a huge potential for district cooling. Multiple zones show potential for district cooling that should be explored, keeping in mind that price of the land, there is a premium, and energy center location are likely to be one of the largest constraints. So, but we know currently, with the pandemic, it is not something easy for us to actually implement, because all the issues is that mainly the take up would definitely be lower than what we expected. And then I think that's the reason, currently, we are not able to push forward, but we hope, these are the potentials that we have, and it is something that we can actually explore further in the future. So if we look back at the best case practices in Iskandar, Malaysia, district cooling system in Kota Iskandar, it is actually owned by the Johor state government, and developed by Cahaya Jawahar Berhad, and Jana DCS is actually the operator. So, the strength practically in terms of this particular facilities is that the contractual agreement between Jana DCS and Johor Administrative Centre enable the business to be sustainable, since there are a lot of activities happen on everyday basis, because it is an administrative centers. So there are many retails, commercial nearby that, where the cooling load for their business operations, are able to actually support the whole business model. But of course, they also have their limitation. As I've mentioned, right now, when we talk about commercial units, practically is becoming zero there due to the pandemic. And this, I think, will have an effect, overall, not only on for DCS in Kota Iskandar, but even, for us to continue in terms of developing new DCS in some of the areas, some of the potential areas, because of the low occupancy rate of the building and so on. Okay, so I think lesson learned is that from our side, we feel that government intervention is crucial to actually speed up the development of district cooling system, not only in Iskandar, Malaysia, but overall in Malaysia. There is a need for policies to govern the overall development. And then regulatory standard is important to guide the investors, building owners, and, we need a body to coordinate DCS development. And of course, there is a need or requirement to list DCS as part of main enablers. And I think that's the reason, we need to bring everyone together. For example, like the enablers as electricity, water, to ensure that facilities incorporated well in the master plan at the various level, city, national, city, state, and national. And a lot of awareness and matchmaking business potential between developers and building owners with distinct energy services providers that need to be conducted. I think in the past, we've been trying to matchmake, developers and also district energy service providers. But we have not been successful, I guess, because we still have not found the business model that can be sustainable, that can reduce the cost of the initial capital expenditure. So probably these are the things that we need some government intervention, in terms of incentive and all that. And of course, what we recommend to at national level to actually overcome the capacity, financing, and policy barriers, we have been actually pushing for a centralized coordination body. It's very challenging, actually, even until today. Some agencies feel that we should just continue to let it private driven to go as is. But for us, we feel that to accelerate, we do need to have some kind of guidelines, some kind of standards, incentives, support, from government to intervene, promote, create more awareness, and to make it part of the urban planning policies in terms of urban planning. So we can't live as is if we want to see a more impactful result. And for us to achieve that 12% energy coming from renewable energy, we need to push the agenda very aggressively. So we also feel that one of the recommendations to actually establish national district cooling policy, develop the district cooling standards, carry out energy master planning, and of course raise awareness of district cooling across all stakeholders. So in this case, I guess it does not reside at Iskandar, Malaysia, for example, for IRDA, as the regional authority, but it have got to also go down to the to the local authority that make decision in terms of development, and also the state and national appetite as to ensure the successful implementation of district energy in Malaysia and in other cities in Malaysia, especially for rapid development cities like Iskandar, rapidly developing cities like Iskandar, Malaysia. Okay, so with that, I thank you and I pass it back to Clara.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. Now it is time for the Q&A. So I would like to ask from the presenters to activate their web camera so the attendees will have a better understanding of who we are. Excellent. Thank you very much. We have a few questions, and I'll start with you, Kamisah. And the question is it possible to develop district energy systems without specific policy to support it?
Okay. Well, currently that's what's been happening. I mean, it is private driven, but of course, when we talk about policy, what type of policy? In terms of processes, they actually have to adhere to, the processes in terms of development and all that. But I guess it's possible. But to us in Iskandar, Malaysia, is about accelerating how to be more, because the benefit is not seen now. We know the fact that to actually develop district energy at this point would be expensive. That's the whole issue about the business model, about the funding. But we are talking about the benefits in the future, sustainable, renewable, that's what we are emphasizing. But if you're asking a question, can you do it? Yeah, it's already happening, but at a very slow rate, So that's basically, the issue.
Thank you very much. We need to speed up a little bit, I think. The next question is for you, Clara. And the question is, what is the most important steps to integrate district energy with policy development?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. Well, I don't think there's just one step, but there are multiple steps or actions that can be undertaken. I hope, Kamisah, you agree with me in that sense. I think many of the steps and actions that can be undertaken were very nicely described by you through the lessons learned. I think many of those lessons learned don't have to necessarily be applied only on the Malaysian district cooling context, but actually can be applied to many contexts and district heating systems, I would say. So across the district energy systems, I would say for sure aligning the national, regional, and subnational level in terms of targets, in terms of roadmaps, in terms of strategies, making sure that not only that is aligned, but that the energy targets are taken into consideration, and if viable, of course, integrating district energy into all of this strategy. That would be one. I would say another overarching action that can be taken is the fact that ensuring that the different ministries and the different organizations are collaborating, ensuring that there's a fluid and effective communication among all of these entities and all of these organizations that typically work in silos, as many of us know, be it the infrastructure ministry versus the energy ministry. So making sure that we all work together towards overall target and objective. And I would say, also mentioned by you, Kamisah, the fact or raising awareness. All of these efforts have to go in parallel with constantly awareness raising, capacity training, and making sure that there is a basic understanding of the technology, of the benefits, and how this can be carried out through the different phases of the urban planning. I don't know if there's anything else that you would add to this, Kamisah. I think your experience is very valuable in this sense to answer to this question.
Well, I guess probably, when it comes to to accelerate, I guess another way is actually to look at what can incentivize developers, to be part of the whole ecosystem. The providers, how would they actually make it work? And of course, for city authorities, how do we actually incorporate the right policies, especially when it comes to urban planning and urban design? So I guess there's a lot of things that need to be done, I guess, to make it work. So I would say it's not like I would say we are taking step by steps right now, but government should find ways to incentivize, probably in certain ways to actually accelerate. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. The next question, we'll receive a next question, and it says it's for the both panelists, but maybe I think for you, Kamisah, will be able to provide more information. And it's like, when the role of private sector becomes more critical across the development stage, from assessment to implementation. So when that role becomes critical?
When that roles become critical.
Yeah, when the role of
when they need to give right information. When they need to give right information, when it comes to development of district energy, I think part and parcel of the success is actually about doing it, doing it right the first time, in the sense that, it doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be small, it have to be adequate, and it should be able to expand, because that would actually help out in terms of sustainability, for the investment, to attract the investors or developers. But sometimes, when we talk about this, a lot of people will go with all the big things first, painting all the good things, the best thing, and this is the right way to do. So I think that is the point that is very critical, getting the right information to ensure successful implementation. So I'm sorry if people disagree, but sometimes people overpromise, right? So overpromise have a lot of implication in terms of cost, and so on and so on. So that's what I'm thinking. That's the most critical part. And of course, the other critical part is about whether we actually have policies and guidelines to actually attract. That's, I think, the whole governmental support to actually push forward the agenda. But when it comes to technical expertise, knowledge, know-how, I guess not to overpromise, because we need to make it work, and make it work correctly. So I guess that's also important, because we know a lot of people do not proceed with it because either they can't find a model of funding that can actually support or sustain the whole operations. But probably that's the main issue, because it's blown out of proportion, from the initial stage. So I don't know, that's my personal opinion, I guess. Maybe Clara, if you want to share.
I think, yeah, definitely you have the direct experience. So I think your opinion is extremely valuable. I would maybe add to that the fact that if when given that the question is asking about in what phase, looking back now at the overview I presented on the main phases in the assessment of district energy planning, I was thinking, I guess it depends a bit on the business model or on the ownership structure. But in the case, particularly in the case where it's a privately owned model or even a PPP, public-private partnership, I would say from the very early phases, try to engage them as much as possible, even in the initial assessment, right? And even in the light touch, they need to be involved, given that already there might be some hints at the business model. It is important that they're engaged, that, as you mentioned, that they understand the benefits without overpromising, of course, ideally, without, trying to be as realistic and as objective as possible within the assessments and the studies. But I would say from the very early phase, they should be involved and understanding what are the different aspects, consequences of all of the development and implementation of the system.
Thank you, both of you, for the very interesting responses. The last questions that we have received until now is for you, Kamisah, and the question is, in your experience, what is the most crucial policy instrument to support the development of district energy?
I believe we need to have a proper planning or master plan for district energy, which I think right now at national level, they are looking at it as part of the sustainable infrastructure. That would help a lot actually for us to gauge the appetite at national level and how this will actually cascade it down to regional and city level, and that probably a policy that will push forward the implementation. And of course, I think with proper guideline, we need to look at how the ways to incentivize again. I think that's very crucial at this stage. Of course, with the current scenario, it is very challenging. We see a lot of commercial centers closing down, cities that we aim to be vibrant is also, getting low, and we need to rebuild that. Look at the plans to actually rebuild that. Well, it is a very challenging time at this stage, I guess. But those are the things that I believe, if it is a concerted effort and agencies are able to collaborate with each other, I'm sure we can actually achieve a much better result and push forward for a better renewable energy consumption. Currently, we are pretty much confined to solar power. I think we should have more options to actually achieve our target. All right. That's for me.
So, thank you both of you for the detailed response to the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of the webinar. I would like to say thanks to the panelists for the informative and interesting presentations, and to the audience for their active participation. We hope that the presentation will be beneficial for all stakeholders involving in district energy and energy efficiency. Thank you for your attention and wish you a good day or night from Copenhagen.